Hi, Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Friday, December the 9th, 2022. Well, we had a chance to backtrack on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, talk about our lesson from Habakkuk from the other week. Well, this past Sunday, the reading was from Esther, and so I want to spend a little bit of time today and tomorrow talking about Esther. Of course, Esther was an unlikely hero, an orphan Jewish girl who was living in exile in Persia among those who didn't return um, to Judah after the Babylonian captivity and after the Persians then subdued the Babylonians. She finds herself in this foreign land and in a sense, the epitome of what her people were experiencing as well. But she gets caught up into all this intrigue because she is selected by King Xerxes to be his new wife. And at the same time, unbeknownst to her, there is a plot to kill the Jews led by the evil Haman. And Mordecai, her cousin who was raising her, brings this up to her and implores her, really, in the reading that we had on Sunday, to try and to do something on behalf of her people. He says, "For if you keep silence at such a time as this, relief and deliverance will rise from the Jews from another quarter, but you and your father's family will perish." In other words, you won't be spared because it'll be found out that you're Jewish, and if indeed all the Jewish people are put to death, you will find yourself suffering the same fate. Now, God is going to deliver his people, and he'll find another way to do it. But who knows? Perhaps you've come to royal dignity. In other words, you've become queen for just such a time as this. And so she has this interesting dynamic, and she's reluctant at first to do anything, and very human. I mean, how many times do we ourselves find ourselves not as significant a moment as that, but find ourselves wondering if we should do the right thing, wonder if we should stand up, whether we should speak out. And of course, the penalty for going to the king uninvited, as she informs Mordecai, is death, even for a queen. And so there's at considerable risk. She contemplates what she's going to do in that situation. I'm reminded here of Archbishop Oscar Romero, who became a martyr back in 1980. He was the Archbishop of El Salvador. And he was kind of an unlikely, in some ways, unlikely choice. In other ways, a very likely choice. In other words, the people who were running the country at that time saw him as a safe choice. He was kind of a mild-mannered, scholarly priest. He was not somebody they necessarily worried about. He was not a rabble-rouser. He was not going to speak out against the injustices that were going on in his country at that time. And so it was seen as a pretty safe appointment. Although, once he's in that position of archbishop and becomes aware, or maybe more acutely aware of what was going on, was deeply affected by the murder of a friend and fellow priest, he begins to speak out. He begins to have a voice for the oppressed and those who are suffering injustice, much to the consternation of the powers that be. And so within a few short years, in 1980, he was shot to death by an assassin, actually while he was saying Mass. And of course, he's become a martyr and a hero of the faith, in particular the Catholic faith, but for all Christians, being willing to put his life on the line to speak out against injustice and oppression, to use his position, much like Esther did, as a platform for trying to do something good. He once said, "Christianity is not a collection of laws to be obeyed. Christianity is a person, one who's loved us so much, one who calls for our love." And he also once wrote this. It's called "Prophets of a Future Not Our Own." "It helps now and then," he said, "to step back and take the long view. We accomplish in our lifetime only a tiny fraction of the magnificent enterprise that is God's work. Nothing we do is complete, which is another way of saying that the kingdom always lies beyond us. No statement says all that could be said. No prayer fully expresses our faith. No confession brings perfection. No pastoral visit brings wholeness. No program accomplishes the church's mission. No set of goals and objectives includes everything. This is what we're about. We plant the seeds that one day will grow. We water seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that provides effects far beyond our capabilities. We cannot do everything, and there's a sense of liberation in realizing that, he said. This enables us to do something and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it's a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for God's grace to enter and do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are workers, not master builders, ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future, not our own. And so, like Queen Esther, Archbishop Romero stood up against the evil of his day, in his situation, in his unique position to say something. Ultimately, it cost him his life, and it reminds us that sometimes we may be called in much smaller ways, I'm sure, of course, to stand up for what is right, for what is good, for what we're called as Christians to do and to say. And on that note, we'll end today and we'll wrap things up tomorrow. Until then, take care. Bye.